Director Valley,
Here.
Director Brands, Director Cardenas,
Here.
Director Daly, Director Keithley, Director Litvack, Director Olson,
Here.
Director Peterson,
Here.
Director Prokopis,
Here.
Director Silvestrini,
Here.
Director Stevenson.
All right, we need to public comments. Do you have any public comments? Just for the record.
So, I just want to say that our precinct chief supervisor, who's served either in the sheriff's department or UPD for 40-some years, for many years, noticed that he's going to be retiring in the middle of October. And I know he doesn't want to call or party or anything like that, but I just want to express my appreciation to him, for his done, for the local people and before that holiday. He's been a superstar law enforcement officer, and I really appreciate his service and we're going to miss him. So it won't be a big overload, and I know we need to speak at our city council meeting. We haven't decided whether the first or second, but anyway, thanks to you and we really appreciate it.
Any other comments on? I'll just quickly say, a couple weeks ago, I got to do a ride along with really focused on addressing the biggest issues, addressing our community, especially in that area. It was absolutely fascinating. It's just this crew of small, unmarked vehicles and going and seeing how they work with folks and try to get some of the social on the streets right now. So I really appreciated that experience. Fascinating to see. So thanks, Chief Tom. All right, with that, move on to the update. Your director.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. Is that a yes? Can you guys hear me okay? I can hear you. Okay. Yeah, just a couple things I wanted to update you on is some awards our folks have received in the last week. We just heard that Ryan Stocking, Detective Stocking, who is assigned to the DEA Metro Narcotics Task Force, received the Task Force Officer of the Year and the Major Case of the Year. Ryan's position is currently paid out of the Mill Creek Precinct. And typically you don't see one detective receive 2 awards like that. So great work by Ryan. His biggest case that he's had, well, he works lots of cases, but this one was a bath salts case that actually not only was in this country, but outside of the country. There were 30 arrests and over $10 million seized by the DEA due to all of the work that Ryan did on this case. So kudos to Ryan. And then the other awards are public safety. Utah Public Safety is going to be giving awards to Detective Ben Pender and also Lieutenant Schoenfeld, Mike Schoenfeld from Metro Gangs, Lieutenant Dustin Fowler from Metro Gangs as well for the public safety partner. They'll receive that award in October, but it's just some great work that these guys are doing across the county and across the state because they're being recognized by the state on this one for all the hard work that they've been doing. And then Metro Gangs as a unit is also receiving an award. So just wanted to say kudos to them and make the board aware. And we'll send out an email with the exact awards so you'll have that information. And then the other update, in the last board meeting, there were questions regarding our staffing. And we said that we would bring some information to you regarding the staffing. So I'm going to turn the time over to our HR folks so they can give you some stats. And I believe it's Lieutenant Nate Lord who will be presenting.
Good morning. The agenda has Chief Olson on here. He's tied up next to his testimony, so I'm going to let him get the comment. Right now we have 25 new hires or rehires, to a total of 29. We only have 4 open positions in the department. That doesn't include the departure of Chief Acton and then Chief Hamlet. We have 7 individual backgrounds, 4 lateral candidates. And our next hire is going to commence in November. We're going to start from the academy. Right now we have 6 in the academy. 11 are on FTO, and 3 will be assigned on the field of those. We are still getting applicants, turning in applications. Even though it's a check.
And Mr. Chair, that's all I have for our update.
If you have any questions about it, we really limitation of 7 different accounts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Had a lot of good communication the last couple of weeks with board members and elected officials and other stakeholders, so it's probably short, so we can have. The first thing I want to talk about real quick is we've had a very, very busy week with in terms of the department with SWAT selection, our sergeant's test, the audit, all these different things. And so it's kind of pulled some of our resources that we are not using. We'll be back on track next week, and I feel like we're ahead of where we thought we were going to be in terms of our progress. I do want to show you the most recent work chart, which has changed almost every day this week, and again the disclaimer. I'll put that up. This work chart will be modified again, I'm sure, on Wednesday. I have a meeting with the command advisory team on Wednesday, and we're going to sit down and go through this again. We've had a lot of great participation, a lot of people stepping up, creative ideas on how to maintain our service the best we can without going over the target we were given in terms of the increase. Again, on the left is our shared services. The cities are in blue, so Lisa's in green, and then those forms be lost on add-ons. So if you want to customize your services to your precinct and division, you can do that. That is where we stand as of September 20th. And again, we're getting close to something that we can publish quite freely and put out to people. Because when we have these discussions, the discussions are getting shorter, and we're really kind of laser focused on smaller pieces of the org chart. So it's coming along very well. I'm happy with how that's looking. The other thing that we're doing is, and I have to give kudos to our finance people. They have been doing the audit, Debbie Drake, and then having me and others harass them for things, for numbers, and they've been like jumping back and forth trying to take care of everything. We're going to put a real aggressive emphasis in the next couple of weeks as some time frees up from the audit to take this org chart, tie it out with our different charts with Excel, with all these different things, so we can have good solid numbers, both of employees. We're also putting together how many employees do we have now, what it looks like now, what it looks like with the reorganization, where those changes are made. So you requested that in the past couple of weeks, and we'll understand why those shifts or changes were made in shared services and the size. So once we tie all that out across 4 or 5 pieces of data, and we feel really confident in the number, we'll present that to these board members. So any questions on the work chart? Yes, sir.
Is it premature to distribute that to us because it changes still, or would that be useful for us?
I'd be happy actually to send that out after Wednesday. I think next Wednesday is going to be, we'll have some changes, minor changes, but will be important changes. But I appreciate our command and our reorg team and everybody's been very engaged and very creative with how we develop this. I had a chance to meet with a couple of councils at workshop, council meetings to present the process and the progress that we're making. We would like to start to schedule those. If you are interested in having this your council meeting, I would love to do that. Along with your commanders, come and present, talk, answer questions. We have all that next week. We love to hit all the townships. The county government wants to have that discussion. Please let us know and Army will be that scheduled on the calendar. I'd love to see that done by end of October, 1st of November. So we've had some good interaction with the council. So we'd like to continue that in terms of our communication strategies. Last Thursday, we went out and did another field trip, visited 6 different buildings in our search for potentially being new HQ. Very, very educational to see what's out there and see what's happening with the market. And, you know, on a side note, to see how some of the buildings have been for a while, see the effect of COVID, how people going to work from home and how that's changed the market. We looked at some really nice places. We're going to continue with that. Contacted our brokers yesterday. We're going to do another group of site visits here in the near future. And again, we also are looking at 4 or 5 different alternatives depending on our costs and that. So I'll be getting fiscal data, what are our current costs for facilities, utilities, all those types of things, and kind of trying to finalize what the budget for that will be like. Last thing, I sent or had Army send the board some of the internal employee updates that are going out. I don't know if you had a chance to look at those. If you feel that's valuable or you want to be included on those, have to continue to do that practice as we send out communications and try to focus on that as much as we can. This is so important. We find that valuable and helpfully we continue to send them out to board members if you'd like to see that. Need feedback on that.
Yeah, I thought it was good to see that, you know, I was seeing any kind of updates, to know that things are still moving forward.
Yeah. They're moving forward and they're moving forward in good faith.
I know that it's almost being this, you know, what is being considered.
More importantly, is it will feedback from labor and the employees that that's the kind of information that they want. You know, are you meeting their needs more than, sure, it's important for us, but it's more important for them to know. And they're getting the information that they feel they need.
Yes. Yeah, and you know, I don't. Maybe you don't have the Kansas Association exactly that. Nobody picked it up. Yeah, I've asked to be on the calendar for labor. I went to their last meeting, SARS Association, the Tenants Association. You know, give them a quick briefing, get input, feedback from them. Along with that, those communications that we're putting out. We've had a lot of commanders help contribute to those when they're hearing things in their precincts or areas. For instance, you know, Craig would say, "Hey, I've heard this." That should be in the communication to our folks. So we're trying to be mindful of that constantly, make sure. I mean, that's the key. As long as we're communicating as much as possible with not just fluff, but good communication. That I found that to be increasingly important, especially in the last few weeks. So making some progress. So things are going well. Any other questions, any feedback?
Maybe Chad, is the anticipated increase for office space above what we are already paying included in cost of projections here now?
Could be. We're still kind of in the data collection for that and understanding the market. We looked at, you know, there's different classes of commercial property. And we looked at some, I think it's in the B class, asked our brokers to come show something that's a smaller footprint. And look at what that looks like. So they're putting together some And when they do this, they put together just three packets and we kind of share with them. You want to see, but it's just full information package together with all this. Info tells you about the building, square footage, and it's full service. And it's inclusive of all taxes and utilities, or it's what they call an N, which means the square footage, you know, see, it's like $50, and that doesn't include your taxes and utilities. So I mean, we're learning this. It's kind of new territory for us. It really what we could do is there's some good deals out there, and things in terms of tenants improvements, and there's some real desperation of building owners part to get a good client that's going to be there for a long-term lease, and you know, we'll pay the bill, and there's a lot of property like that out there. So in terms of whether cost increases or it's the same or less, it's kind of really up to what we decide to do and what our options are. There's some creative hybrid options that we're actually looking at. I think we can flush that out a little bit more and like share that with the board.
Is it too early to even decide? Are we looking at an east-west or a single headquarters or kind of separated? You know, are you looking at two central locations on one on the east, one on the west, or one major?
Just, yeah, one central location similar to this. Okay. Or we, you know, we have some training areas, and we have a place where the board can meet. We're going to have training classes. And then some office space.
But I have been encouraging you to take a look. We have both third floor City Hall building. I know that there's extra space in that floor, and there would be space to have some saving funds that way.
Yeah, I you know, just I'm actually going to approach some folks saying, hey, you know, people, we talk about the shared services or metro services, but nobody really sees it. That if we were to invest some of those units within some of the precincts, maybe have a smaller footprint for an HQ, and then our, you know, our members can see those units and interact with them more frequently and understand kind of the beginning of that shared service. So, I mean, there's a lot of, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but that's kind of a hybrid option. So there's some good options out there. But we'll continue to work on that. That is one of the more daunting, but it's definitely a little more, we're out of our comfort zone through the state, but we're learning a lot. And so I think as we continue down this path, we'll get more educated and make some decisions. And of course, we'll bring it up to the board for your input and guidance before.
But just as we're looking at costs, just that's just increments. That doesn't clear potential office space costs.
Well, yeah, like one-time costs, we have retrofit something. Included as well, includes what it includes is the budget as we have it now, with the 7% increase on top of that. And we have not ended up in modifications to the operations fees. Yeah, because
our current operations are taking their.
That's going to be adjusted, obviously, because as we lose folks or folks go to the sheriff's office, bunch of things.
Thank you. All right, move on to the solid county wall bureau update.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, appreciate that. For our update this week, we're squarely on our timeline where we talked about kind of what we have been planning, getting information from county HR. We've been waiting for market information to overlay some of that data around benefits and compensation over the positions that we're looking at bringing over And we've had some really good meetings with them in the last week, and they've actually gotten their compensation study back this last week. Had a preliminary discussion with them. What's been really cool is the really positive thing about what they've done is they were extremely thorough. So they included I mean, I'm really going to get down into the weeds just for a minute here, but more information is better in a little bit. They really got a kind of what I would call a really broad swipe of what the market is, including counties outside of Salt Lake, which we had talked to them many months ago about, you know, let's broadly look at the market, not just here in the Salt Lake area, not just in Utah, but look at some of the major metro areas. So we can kind of get an idea of what packages folks are offering. They did that. They've got really good information as they were comparing information amongst agencies. They were really looking at other agencies similar to what positions are offered in the sheriff's office, which is the standard in the county. Is if they're going to compare, I'll just pull one out. If they're going to compare Salt Lake County to, say, I know one of the respondents in the valley, because there weren't a ton that matched every single job category in the county, but Sandy was one of them that where the county sent out all the job descriptions they had, whether it was captain or office coordinator or forensics tech or just, and the dozens of job descriptions. Sandy was one of them that said, yeah, we've got that, and filled in, responded with all of the information. Well, there, you could imagine that not everybody will have a forensics tech, or even, you know, amongst all the police agencies here in the Salt Lake Valley, one of the ranks that is lacking is a captain rank. There's not a lot of agencies that have captains any longer. So if they didn't include that they had a captain, then they would kind of pulled out of that initial tranche of data collection because they didn't have that specific rank. So they're trying to look at agencies where they're comparing the whole onslaught of employees and what they compensate each of them for. We had a long discussion with them about that. We see that their philosophy is really healthy. They're kind of looking at the whole of an organization and how they compensate folks. I think it's actually a really good business practice if you're trying to compare apples to apples as close as possible. It doesn't, and this is also, you know, being that this is kind of a new process, bringing the law enforcement bureau back to the county. It is also for our incredible HR staff over in the county, who are bending over backwards to try to make this work with us. It's also new to them. Like, I mean, they've been working the sheriff's office stuff in like corrections and the public safety bureau, but the law enforcement side, we're doing some tweaking with them. The good thing is we see that we're right on schedule. We'd always talked about that maybe August, September, we'd be getting that data and overlaying it over our personnel numbers. And then it would be October, November that we would be filling in budgets and being able to provide that information to our policymakers at the county, and then also to other interested parties, of course, like yourselves and our people, making sure that people have the information they need as soon as we get it. Everything is green light, and it appears we're right on that timeline. We're just going to continue to work with county HR. Chief Ackerman, I'm sure is on the line here. Chief Ackerman, he's already taken point with county HR. His experience here with UPD and running compensation information for a few years has been invaluable already in working with them and kind of like hey, coaching. This is kind of how the law enforcement market looks at different positions, even though we may need to. It may not be that we'll compare exactly to Red Delicious to a Red Delicious. We may have to go with an envy apple and a Red Delicious. And this is how we'll make it work. And as we've kind of been watching that process this week, we already see the county HR is very warm. What I've been probably most impressed is when this last week when we had a meeting with them to kind of go over the hours, all of the data, really get down into the fine detail of it. We were in one of our fiscal conference rooms over at the county government center, and we didn't have enough chairs. It literally was standing room only. They brought maybe like 12 of their techs, their supervisors, the county HR director, the assistant directors, the benefits coordinators, the project manager, director. I mean, you name it, they're all hands on deck to try to make this work and to make sure that we lift this off the ground. And I know that a lot of that direction and support is not just coming from the HR director, but from the mayor's office, And we appreciate that support to make sure this is happening on the timeline that we discussed. We're looking at a lot of things, things like the, you know, a lot of the big contracts that we're working with, like VEC and things like that. We're making sure, because we're breaking away, obviously. You know, UPD has had a relationship with VEC. Our law enforcement bureau is going to continue to need to have that same relationship. These are the kinds of things that we're kind of looking at right now in this intermediate period, and CAD issues. And the positions that we talked about last month, we hired the 2 chiefs, and then the other critical position was our office coordinator. I know they had nearly 40 people put in for that office coordinator to come over and work on this. And we're really excited about that. We're grateful that people can see that not only do we need the help, but they want to come over and help. There's a lot of folks who want to jump in and get involved. Whether it's sheriff's office and outside applicants, UPD applicants, we're just excited about that. Really. So, and then this last little bit is definitely still business. It's just a little bit of there's a little bit of personal aspect in this. I'm actually retiring. I'm retiring next week. In a week, it'll be my last day. In SWAT, we actually have, so when you're doing an operation, and you've done all the preparation, you've done, you know, sometimes hundreds of hours of preparation for an operation, depending on what it might be. And as you're getting ready to go up to a target, we have what we call as the squeeze. You think of the Congo line that a SWAT team is in as they're getting ready to go up towards target to be able to take care of whatever assignment they're doing. And the reason why I'm kind of explaining it is a squeeze is really deliberate. I mean, if I had to demonstrate it with my brother right here at Mass, he could show it perfectly because it's something ingrained in you even from tryouts. And the squeeze is right on the back of the arm. See, he just wants to do it. It's on the back of the arm. It is something that you recognize. It's not a bump. It's not a graze. It's not a tickle, even though it could be funny at those times, and that happens. Little tickles on the arm. You know what a squeeze is because it grabs the whole arm. It's the muscle, and it is a squeeze. It is very deliberate, almost to the point of pain, because you don't want anybody to mistake what that means. And what the squeeze means is, because you are only focused on your assignment and what is going on in front of you. And the squeeze means, hey, I've got all my equipment and my mindset is ready to go. Squeeze. When you're ready, start moving because I'm ready. Squeeze. And the squeeze starts with the very last person in the line. So as soon as the stick's ready, the last person squeezes, it moves up, and as soon as the team leader points, whoever is leading this gets a squeeze, then the team moves without talking, which you obviously want in a tactical environment. For myself, I've felt the squeeze. I have. I know that the team that I've been working with, even those who have just jumped in, Chief Ackerman, Chief Van Emmerich, I know that they're ready. I mean, Brittany Carzan's been invaluable. The HR director, our HR manager, Green Lucy, and our fiscal manager, all of our staff, our team over at the sheriff's office is ready to pull, and I'm completely comfortable with this operation will continue to move forward. All of this is so much bigger than me. I've never had that idea. I only use the analogy of the squeeze because the team's ready to move forward. Nothing's going to stop. And I have just total confidence. If I didn't feel the squeeze, just like if I was on an operation, I wouldn't move. I felt the squeeze. People are ready to move forward. And we're following the direction of our team leader, who I have full confidence in, and that's the sheriff. So I leave you with that. I thank you guys. I appreciate it. you have any questions?
You know, you are a fantastic human being. I've gotten to know you in this position. What strikes me as much as anything, in your comments, is your humanity. You're a tremendous. So we're going to miss you. I wish you the very best. I'm thankful for what you've done on your way out here. Best of luck. Thank you.
I appreciate learning more about the sweets.
That's very minor details.
I too want to echo that. I just want to say thank you. You're one of those that I heard your name coming up in the fire service. We worked closely together, but I heard your name long before I ever really met you. And everything I heard was absolutely true. You are going to be missed. Thank you.
That's very good. Thank you. I'm really excited to, I for a very, very long time, this is the part that I talk about every year. For a long time, I've wanted to be a full-time dad. For really all my life. And my wife did that for nearly a couple decades, and she got a job a few years ago, and as with great benefits, and she's ready to kind of be the primary breadwinner. Luckily, in this profession, we have a good pension that can help take care of us when we're at this point in our career, when we felt the squeeze. And you know, I've got a little boy that's in 5th grade, and if I don't kind of like jump on the train of trying to be a full-time dad for a few years, a train's going to leave the station, and I've got to get my ticket to punch it, or I'll never do it. So I'm really excited to do that, to really just kind of take care of my health and be with my family. So it's very exciting. I just couldn't be more pumped. So thank you very much.
I do have a little bit of spot.
Sure, please.
With that, markets, you know, that will be probably at some point that share.
I'm really actually quite sure that the county does share their information once they've completed their studies, because I know that they have a reciprocal relationship, is that they seek for information and thus they can freely share it.
Dick, I have one question too, sorry.
Oh, sure.
We've had a glimpse at a org chart for UPD. I imagine you're at the point on the sheriff's office side for statutory and unincorporated responsibilities or duties. I'm curious if you're at a point, you have an idea of fully built out what FTE, how many FTEs you're going to need.
Yeah, so we've had an org chart built out probably since a rough one, since probably early June. So maybe like 3 months now. It has changed, and even probably Monday or Tuesday, we had a discussion about how it will change again. And pretty specifically a spot where we think it's probably changed again because of discussions with some of the policymakers in the county. And we anticipate over the next 2 to 3 weeks, especially as we overlay budget numbers, and because that is the reality of what we're dealing with, is we have the ideal of making sure it doesn't affect the service and our people. And we believe that we can hold to that because the policymakers agree with that. But the reality is sometimes if you only have 90 cents to spend, even if you need $1, you still only have 90 cents. So there may be some realities about how the organization may change, or how it may be organized to find the efficiencies so that we can continue to provide the service. And that will require like movement and differences, and maybe even some deletion or addition in some areas. It's just, we know it's changing a lot. And but again, I think this is probably one of, you'll just we'll have to beg for your patience of some, like yourself in this question, because we want to provide information. And I applaud Chief Matherin on the information he is providing. And it's really two sides of a coin. There isn't a right or a wrong in this. Is that you can provide information and it's helpful to see that there are things happening. But then sometimes if that information changes, you're like, oh, it's still changing. So it's like a mixed bag of like, we're getting information which is helpful, but then it changes, which sometimes isn't so helpful in this situation. But then on the flip side of kind of the approach that we're taking with the county is we're not sharing the org chart because we know it's changing, just like it's changing, right? For the UPD side. So it's a mixed bag on our side is because we have people starving for the information, which is not good. But then when we provide an org chart, we hope that when they see it, that it's not going to change. We hope that the draft that it'll still be a draft, I'm sure, when it's first rolled out in the next month or so. But we hope that it'll be something you can stand on and say, yes, let's have a real debate about what that service is, because that's what it's going to look like. And that's our hope.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, item 6, finance committee meeting updates.
Okay, so, one is, on item 9 today, early resolution to that. And we also discussed the ongoing, agreement. And I'm going to say a couple of them. I wrote a lot of notes about it in the phone. So we basically we're focusing on the cap for the reserve around 8.5 that would have to be approved first approved by the board. So, and we have to also be a minimum in the same model. So, very long.
We talked about the question of member fund balance. We could call it precinct fund balance, but it's actually broader than that. It can be used for whatever member purposes being appropriate. And one of the questions was part of the discussion was whether there should be, to what extent this should be in the new revised interlocal and what should be left to the board to make future policy decisions one way or the other. So there was a general consensus that we should recognize the existence of member fund balance, that we should probably vest it at the time the new organization starts so that people won't worry about losing their fund balance, and that the organization should defer to the board or turn over to the board the authority to set whatever we call caps or other conditions or restrictions on fund balance, precinct fund balance going forward, but that we should not tie any type of cap into the interlocal. What that cap should be, there was a discussion about 8.5%, but I think that there was a consensus that that's a discussion that needs to continue, that there's not at this point, I mean, we're ready to I don't think really was at that point ready to recommend that cap number, but in the midst of all of our preparations for the audit, we had at least a sheet that Debbie had prepared to show the members if it was 8.5%, what that would look like in terms of where they sit. I do think that the actual number will be deferred for future discussions with the finance committee, but I think there was a general consensus that the issue should be left to this board and future board rather than trying to put it into the interlocal, other than recognize the existence of precinct funds or member fund balance, and that turn it over to the board to enforce it going forward.
Yeah, this leads into the governance committee discussion, because we talked about that there too, but we did talk about the fact that we don't want to have to go back to each member jurisdiction for an amendment to the interlocal, and that requires that if you put something in the interlocal, it would be better to adopt fund balance policies as a policy. We had a big discussion about that, for fund balance, we should probably continue to have that. But then there are some issues about how large individual member, precinct fund balance would be. There's about this need for some kind of cushion there, but I think we have general agreement about having that done as a matter of what policy rather than.
I'll just say on that for I'm also agree with it makes sense. The only thing I want to make sure is that when that is set, it's at 8.5 or 15 or whatever it is, If a member's fund balance goes over, that the member has the ability to save money for the fund balance, or we just want to check that to us and make sure that we have that.
I think there wasn't I mean, I'm hesitant to put that in there or local, but I do think that as we discuss it in terms of what the policy is, and what the policy should be, that's part of one of the discussion areas. In terms of basically, I think the best way for the interlocal to handle it is what Mayor Silvestrini said, is that we not do too much to put in, we don't put too much in there, but if there's a desire to change it, we have to go back and amend the interlocal for that purpose. But I understand the Bill's position, and certainly I think that's something that can be considered moving forward in terms of how the policy should work. And like I said, we did believe that it's important to recognize its existence, and the funds that are held at the time the new interlocal was approved and was in effect would be vested so that there wouldn't be any reduction in those amounts, even if there is a cap when they're set that goes over that. And by necessity, that would also mean that give the member authority to spend that down to the cap that they want. I think we work this out. Yeah.
Well, the only other thing I'll talk about, we had a governance meeting, and the only other thing that I think we made good progress is, that, and that committee was lawyer heavy, we had a legal counsel from a number of the members of the department contributed. The one thing I think that we need to, maybe consider as board members and actually as individual representatives of this board to our own councils. There's an issue that I think will arise about when we enter into this situation, and we're not going to call it UPD 2.0 anymore, and it's a continuation of the department. But I think there is an issue about the commitment that our individual municipalities to the department, and at least there was some discussion by some of the council saying that might be a reluctance among some councils to make more than a 1-year commitment to this. I don't think it's unreasonable to go to our council to say, look, given that we're recommitting to each other, to have a commitment of something like 3 years, at least half a commitment to that. If you're in or you're out, right? And I think it's important for the stability of the department to let our officers know that we're committed to this, and also just for us to build plan budgets to know what's going on, that we're not going to have defections within some period of time that is reasonable. And besides, I suggest at least 3 years is that kind of number. So, I know that there may be some reticence among some councils because they're unknowns here, but to the extent that we're recommitting here, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for that type of a commitment. So be thinking about that, maybe even be discussing about that with your councils that you're updating them about where we are in progress along this, because I think it would be a really good thing for the members, the officers that are employed by this department. They know that the dust is going to settle a little bit here, and we're going to have stability.
It's been I appreciate this further there like 5 years of this, 3 years. I'll say it's my council specifically that we had concerns around. Because I understand why we're having that conversation. It's not an unfair ask. When they're trying to make sure that this organization is stable, and I think it's a place that we can get to feel comfortable. I think the concern comes from not the commitment to doing this, but I know that in the past it's generally been has a harder time taking some of the bigger hits as far as budget increases, and so if it doesn't come and join this and massive everything they do. So I don't expect this to happen, but if something were to happen, if it were to say, by the way, we just did a 10% increase the next year, now we're doing that a 20% increase, whatever it is. We are starting to entire, that 10% increase is a 40% increase property tax for us. To do, and so I think there's hesitation of, okay, well, if something wild does happen, we're just stop. And we put that for our council, it's hesitant, so it's working for us, in those conversations with them, you know, that compare. But I think that we've got, we're having to do that, what that means to the work.
I just wanted, I mean, this was the finance committee update, but we more in the local committee drafting update. At the meeting, we decided to leave the question of initial commitment to the new UPD as an open question, because it's something that I think there is some lack of consensus going forward on that, and it should be obviously the one side is a commitment is very helpful for us as we move forward with reorganizing the department. On the other end, the discussion was like, well, we already are vested, and now we're going to have a new vesting period put upon us, and it's ultimately going to be a board decision, so the committee decided in terms of an amendment decision on what that should be. Obviously, for new members of the UPD, there will be a vesting period. I think it's still designed to be 5 years of continuous membership before you would vest. And just, I guess, update on the rest of the process. There was a lot of progress made on consensus additions and changes to the document. A couple of the attorneys wanted a chance to review it and get some comments to me. Your city attorney did. I'm still waiting to hear from John Brams. He's got some suggested changes to it. And so it was helpful to have attorneys there from every entity that will be part of the new UPD. And hopefully when I get all those changes back, we'll be able to circulate a draft that will be getting closer to what the final may look like. There will be some issues occasionally, like the questioning of the new vesting requirement. That would be something that ultimately will go to the members for approval. But we're making good progress on the local drafting. I think we are on track to get something near final to be circulated before the end of the year, and maybe go for approvals after the first of the year. I'm always an optimist, but I think that with the changes in the meeting, we're going to continue to meet, I think, around once a month. If we need to speed that up, we can to meet that timeline. But the meetings have been very productive in terms of narrowing issues that are still areas of disagreement. And ultimately, there will come time when we need to answer those questions. But for the most part, I think we're making progress trying to limit those and come up with a document that will work for all of the new members of the UPD.
I agree. I really appreciate the dialogue that's happening now. I thought this is another meeting. There's big issues out there. Big time now, so we can go through this really off. Yeah. Again. Last thing I would say on this, as it's going to think about it, talk about this next period is I got this organization united where was the around negotiating those. We may have a community. We're at a 5 years. So that's ideally I want 6 years organization. We have to state in the base. 5 years for us to sort of growing the organization. If we did it on a negotiated basis, then maybe you call to bring into it, well, then I think that's probably a different negotiation than a community coming in with struggling. We might want a different, if we are picking up costs for them, we might want a longer period. And so I think I like that idea of moving it more open-ended, being negotiate something. We might try to. And leave that
That's not a bad idea, because I think any kind of situation that we entertaining members is going to involve a negotiation. Because any community that wants to come in is going to have some uncertainties and you know, it's going to be a trial basis. One of the other things, I don't remember the context of this conversation, but we did have, I've been involved with some conversations where we maybe, you know, we talked about the prospect of us contracting with Salt Lake County Sheriff's Law Enforcement Bureau and or them contracting with certain services where they might be more efficient with housing, one agency or the other, and there would be economies still achieved that way. We talked also about that. Probably the most likely way to attract new membership into the organization is to kind of do that with other agencies. You know, maybe they want to partner with this for SWAT or cars unit or things like that, and get their foot in the door and figure out what's going on. And I think whatever we do within our local needs to accommodate that type of engagement with another agency, because I think at least if I was contemplating joining another police agency, I would want to have some assurance that it's going to work and get your toe wet with some things that's not really figure out how to work.
And we did have a first meeting with Salt Lake County representatives from the DA's office and Sheriff's office, talking about generally what we need to do moving forward and some areas of cooperation as well. And we're in the very early stages of this discussion, so I don't have anything to report. That is on our list of items to discuss in the future, and we'll be moving those discussions forward as well.
This is a reminder to the board, are we seeing those meetings, they're public, so you can have to be a part of that. To me, as all conversations we've had, just those two are that. So I encourage you to. All right, we'll just move on to item A, approval of one.
We're skipping the interlocal.
We discovered.
Okay.
Oh, okay, I didn't want to, mine is brief, standard surplus resolution, surplus of vehicle is reviewed for. Surplus. That's it. Good job.
Mr. Chair, Jeff, so now I make a motion to approve surplus resolution 23-9 vehicle tests.
Second. Second, any further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Yeah. Moving on, item 9, consider your children quarterly budget amendments.
Thank you, Chair. I do need to add one item to the quarterly amendments that were included in the report that I presented to the finance committee last week. Recently experienced unfortunate disorder. So the medication work is completed by restoration and the bottom of that is $3,125. So that's being added to the budget.
At least it wasn't a mishap. You would have 35.
So with that, the amendments that were presented to the finance committee are as follows. We were awarded a JAG grant in the amount of $54,482. Of that, $6,990 will go to investigation for ballistic shield and surveillance cameras, and $42,432 will go to SWAT for tactical body armor with plates and ballistic helmets and gas masks with voice projection. And then $5,060 will go to special ops training unit for riot shields. We also received a $15,000 ICAC grant, which is for internet crimes against children, and that will go towards overtime and then further consciousness to help aid in that. We did discover in the budget that workers' comp and employee benefits and the insurance department were in the off of the budget. So unfortunately, we do need to add 75,000 and 95,000 respectively to the budget. Fortunately, we do have reserves in the general fund, partly due to significant interest earning this past year. So that was one good benefit of higher interest. To cover the additional expense, and I sincerely apologize for this. I am more familiar with the budget. And I am committed to implementing procedures, hopefully to reduce and keep these oversights from happening in the future. SWAT has canceled a subscription for an unreliable breach incident management software program, and they will now start using the free platform. So with that, $3,500 will be reclassified from computer software to small equipment. Then the new drone negotiations department is getting a better handle on the types of expenses that they need to for this department. So the $13,000 is going to be, so $13,000 is going to be reclassified in capital purchases, and it's going to go to 1,250 for specialty uniforms for weather gear and drone identifier shirts for pilots. 1750 to go for the air data system update, which stores flight information, internal drone information, and we have and then 10,000 will go to purchase drones that fall underneath the $5,000 minimum that we capitalization limit, which we just and then I've already addressed the contribution. So with that, the total fiscal impact is $239,482 in the general fund, and then the current precinct is a net zero. But really the true impact is $170,000.
I'll make a motion to approve. Motion to go into the chair.
Second, all fair, please say aye. Okay, moving to the public hearing, we have a public comment on this item.
So moved.
Yeah, second. Second, all fair, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Any further discussion from the board on this, on this item? We have a second.
Motion to approve resolution to approve budget amendments to fiscal year 23-24 budget.
Well, it's in the amendment here. So.
Second.
Unless Mary's the rest of me wants to, I can think of the code of conduct. Then that.
All in favor, please say aye.
Yeah, Susan would be good.
Okay, that passes. Please. Granted with the discussion. All right, item 10, upcoming meetings, we have the work session meeting on Wednesday, October 4th at 9 a.m. Any other meeting that you're on here? Okay. Item 11, approval of August 17th and August 28th.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, now we're going to approve.
Second that.
Second, discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, passes. Any other business? The only other thing I'll quickly add is on the 28th of this month, Tuesday, with the agriculture share. Their markets, mentioned in there, talking about, for the strong piece of the share is going to, trying to stay over. So it's trying to go as well, you know, how to see. Okay, we're there.
So moving.
That's it. All fair and square?
Aye.
Any further?